What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Game 2 of the Grand Finals of the EMS LAN tournament taking place in Katowice, Poland. And this is going to be a matchup between Navi and Rox.KIS, and if you have not watched Game On, I highly suggest that you do so. Rox.KIS with a really clever draft, and Navi, they did some sneaky things, but ultimately got completely overpowered by Rox.KIS. And Navi on the edge of elimination. This is a best of 3 single elimination tournament, so Navi, all they have to do is lose one more game and they're done. They were looking so dominant, taking down Fnatic, destroying Mouse. Will it all come to an end to lose to Rox.KIS? I mean, Rox.KIS is really strong, but still, Navi was the clear favorite after they managed to take down Fnatic, after Alliance had managed to fall to Mouse. Navi were expected to win this tournament rather easily, but Rox.KIS throwing a damper to the plans, and this team, headed by Dread and BZZ, is looking quite sharp. But meanwhile, Rox.KIS going to mount the Darkseer and the Keeper of the Light. Interesting that they decide to mount the Darkseer even though they have first pick. Darkseer is a hero that is sort of phasing in and out. Like, it's very high priority for teams like Dingtos, and it's not nearly high priority for other teams. But Fnatic does play a remarkable Darkseer. Meanwhile, Navi going to mount the Batrider. So Rox.KIS, what they're aiming for is to try to get the Wisp or the Nyx, and Navi has to pick their poison. So we'll see what kind of game plan Navi has to deal with one of these heroes. Wisp has been incredibly successful, and I don't think he's actually been let through the ban pool in this tournament. I think there was a stat on that Wisp has actually not been allowed to be played just because he's being permabanned in this tournament. So we'll see if Navi continues that trend or if they're going to battle the Nyx. We'll find out very shortly. But Rox.KIS looking quite formidable, and I'm sure that they are very content with getting either of those two heroes. Again, I'm not too familiar with the Rox.KIS' style of play. I imagine they play very aggressive, as is typical for most CIS teams, but they have been showing that they can really step it up. Meanwhile, Navi might want to get the Nyx themselves, so they could do sort of a ship ban, which they're going to do with the Lifesteal. Very strong ban right here, and when I say a ship ban, that means a hero that's not really as broken as the other 4 heroes that have currently been banned. Usually it's the Darkseer or anything like that, but that means Navi are going to get their hands on the Nyx, and it most likely will be headed by Kroki because Denti loves those mobile solo mid heroes that have a huge impact, but Rox.KIS is going to get the Wisp. And when there's a Wisp, Chaos Knight or Tiny is sure to follow, otherwise Navi will most certainly ban out in the second phase. As Navi going to pick up the Magnus. The offlane Magnus was not successful whatsoever for Navi, so I imagine this is going to be a Dendi mid-solo Magnus. Magnus in the offlane just gets overpowered because of his skewer nerf, can't really get out of jail free anymore, has to sort of just be immortal. And that is just so difficult for Magnus these days because he is so powerful. But Navi going to skip the Nyx altogether, going to pick up the Rubik. So they are going with the pick that has the most familiarity with them. If you have not watched any Kuroki games recently, his Rubik has been absolutely phenomenal. Stealing spells all over the place, always being in the right place at the right time. So I imagine this will be a support Rubik being headed by Kuroki. Meanwhile, Rox.KIS is going to pick up the Chaos Knight, trying to get a bit more mid-game. If you pick up the Tiny, usually indicate that you want to go for a more farming-oriented late-game build, because with Tiny, Wisp does grant Tiny that bit of attack speed, but Tiny does need that Agnum Scepter, and that does take around 20 minutes if Tiny's a little bit pressured for him to farm. Meanwhile, Chaos Knight doesn't really need to farm. He gets most of his farm on the back of hero kills, but again, he's not a strong farmer, and if Rox.KIS don't manage to get those kills flowing in the early game, Chaos Knight will have a big reduced role in the upcoming minutes as the game progresses. So Rox.KIS looking to fortify their mid game by perhaps getting a late game hero. Rox.KIS seems like they're playing rather defensively. They're going to pick up the Gyrocopter, and meanwhile, Navi going to pick up the Phantom Lancer. Ooh, interesting. As Gyrocopter is pretty strong against Phantom Lancer, but Phantom Lancer is still quite powerful, and Magnus can definitely help him out. And again, whenever I say see a Magnus in the late game, never bet against that team. My money's always on the team with Magnus because his ultimate is just so damn powerful, and they have a Rubik, so they're not going to be in danger of having a spell stolen. Meanwhile, Rox.KIS is going to be at the Chen. Now, Navi's lineup is pretty conservative. Right now, they don't have too much early game damage. Rubik is not the best roamer. He has telekinesis, but he himself does not deal too much damage. And Rox.KIS is coming out the Chen, and there's a couple reasons why you're doing that. First, Puppy's Chen is world-renowned for being extremely powerful, one of the best Chens in all of the world. Secondly, one of the ways to sort of limit Wisp's impact is sort of get your own map control, because Wisp really thrives on limiting your opponent's presence in the map, and one of the best ways to do that is to push down early game towers. And one of the things about Chen is that it's quite difficult to gank a Chen because he has the creeps constantly surrounding him, so you can't really teleport in on a Chen, otherwise with good micro he will have his creeps in place to stun. So Rox.KIS making some smart bans right here, gonna ban out pushers that could potentially slow down the ganking efforts of Chaos Knight, and of course they're a little bit more tricky to gank. And of course, they're also signature puppy heroes. Beyond Navi, gonna about Clockwork Ezreal's and Nature's Prophet recognizing that Rox.KIS do not have an offlane hero at the moment, and split push would be quite annoying. Clockwork is quite a defensive hero, and there are 2 melee heroes on side of Navi, and meanwhile, Nature's Prophet split push is quite annoying to deal with, especially if you don't have anything like Keeper Light to constantly keep your hero near your team at all times due to the presence of recall. So Phantom Lancer, if he wants to stop the push by Nature's Prophet, will have to probably devote himself, or at least one of Navi's squad will have to devote themselves to constantly keeping that Furion in check while its split push is going on. Meanwhile, Rox.KIS getting at the Lone Druid. I don't think Navi would have picked up the Lone Druid. Lone Druid is quite a powerful hero, especially with Magnus, but I don't know, if Navi picked up the Lone Druid, that would be quite greedy, as their lineup does really not have too much early game DPS. Phantom Lancer actually does a surprising amount of damage because his Spirit Lance is quite a powerful nuke and it has a short cooldown. Magnus has some shockwave, but in terms of overall teamfight impact in the early game, Navi is really lacking, and Lone Druid does take a while to build up, so I'm not too sure about this Lone Druid ban. I don't think Navi would have picked it up either, but I feel like Rox.KIS could have probably saved that ban for something a bit more powerful. Maybe banning out a support, whether it be a Nyx or something like that, because Nyx, for once in his life, has made it all the way through the second phase of bans, and it seems like no team is intent on picking him just yet. So what Rox.KIS are going to do, I imagine, is going to be Chaos Knight Wisp mid lane, because that is a mid lane that can defeat pretty much anybody. Although it does have a bit more trouble against Magnus, probably, just because Reality Rift into Tether is quite powerful, but Magnus is tanky enough that can survive the initial onslaught unless Chaos Knight does get a very lucky stun. And unless Chaos Knight does get the lucky stun, Magnus can potentially scare away, and there's really not too much Chaos Knight can do. And of course, Magnus can always keep the wave push because of Shockwave, and the ability to spam that ranged nuke at quite a long range is something that Queen of Pain does not have. It's because Queen of Pain does have to venture up quite close in order to maximize the damage of that Scream of Pain. So Rox.KIS is going to pick up the Nyx, so it might be a Gyrocopter Nyx lane top, Chaos Knight Wisp mid, and perhaps getting an offlane hero. But I'm not too sure who is left in the offlane hero pool that Rox.KIS might want to go for, so perhaps Rox.KIS are debating whether or not they should put an aggressive trial lane. But if they do that, Wisp experience will be quite limited, and Wisp is not really the most powerful of aggressive trial lane heroes. Wisp is actually quite a weak trial lane hero in general, and that's why the Chinese teams don't really not really respect Wisp, but don't really place him in that high of a priority pool. Meanwhile, Navi going to pick up the Jakiro. I like this pickup a lot because when you're picking up a Phantom Lancer, you usually want to play for the late game, and you have the late game. Even though Gyrocopter has potential to get a Rapier and really decimate Phantom Lancer, because Phantom Lancer does not really want to be fighting you head up, or he can, but against a Gyrocopter who does have the potential to go for Rapier, it's not really the best of ideas, but they have a Magnus, and they have the RP to pin Gyrocopter in place, and Jakiro is quite a defensive support, has a lot of range on his side, does a lot of damage, can anti-push quite solidly as well, and Rox.KIS, even though they have a lot of mid-game damage, they don't really have too much pushing abilities, so I imagine it will be quite difficult for Rox.KIS to actually push in unless Navi makes a couple mistakes. Meanwhile, Rox.KIS debating what they should do for their last hero. They probably need to get an offlane hero unless they decide to run an aggressive trial with Chaos Knight, Nyx, and Wisp, or IO as it's called now. Put Gyrocopter in the mid or safe lane and then get another hero for the mid or safe lane. But then Rox.KIS's lineup itself is quite greedy because all of these heroes do need a solid amount of experience, and that means if they spend a lot of their time getting experience, you won't be able to get Chaos Knight's trademark aggression going nearly as fast. And by the time you give Navi, even at least 8 minutes, which I imagine that would be the case when the aggressive trial would finally be able to get that level 6 up on the Wisp, probably even later, then the Navi heroes would be tanky enough that they could survive some of the Wits down barrage and force the counter teleports, and there's nothing scarier than a Magnus or a Jakiro teleporting in to have that long range of counter ganking. It's so immense. So Rox.KIS going to pick up the Enigma. They're going to put Enigma in the offlane most likely, or may just going to sack the offlane altogether. Say we're no Phantom Lancer will get his farm regardless. We'll just get Enigma his free farm ASAP, get that mechanism, and then try to push in. So if that is the case, Rox.KIS's lineup makes a bit more sense. They have finally a solid pusher as well. You don't really pick Enigma for Black Hole anymore. You pick him because of his Eidolons. But Navi responding with a Brewmaster. It's going to be an offlane brew, so they are anticipating the Wisp Chaos Knight dual lane mid, and they're going to put Funnick up against the Gyrocopter and the Nyx safe lane. So Funnick probably won't be able to stop the push once the Enigma does come out of the jungle, but Brewmaster is so tanky that even with Nyx and Gyrocopter constantly pressuring him, Funnick should be okay. So Navi's lanes are a lot more versatile this game. They have a lot of variety. They have good teamfight control. They have something to lock down the Enigma before Enigma gets a BKB or a fast dagger and then traps that Brewmaster. They have RP, the best spell in the game for the ultimate. They have Phantom Lancer for the late game. So I'm really liking Navi's lineup a lot more in this game. It just seems to have a lot of teamfight potential. And one of the things about Brewmaster that I always mention is that his cooldown, his ultimate is so long they can start to take advantage of that. But Rox.KIS, can they really do that? Because, well, I guess they can with the teleports in by the Wisp and Chaos Knight, but still, once the Brewmaster ultimate pops, the teamfight presence of Rox.KIS will just be severely mitigated. And keep in mind, Brewmaster is not the sole teamfight hero, as is the case for most teams. They do have a Magnus, they do have Jakiro, they even have Rubik, who could potentially steal a spell like Black Hole or Impale. And actually, Rubik, one of the good things about Rubik versus Enigma is that he will always steal Black Hole as long as he's not caught in it, just because Black Hole is a channeling ability. And once KuroKy picks up a Force Staff or a Dagger, you can bet your life that he will always steal Black Hole in a team fight. As both teams venturing forward, Navi looking to protect Funnick as much as possible because Brewmaster is quite an experienced dependent hero. His ultimate does fade out sort of once the game hits the 35-40 minute mark because his ultimate spirits can be taken down. So you want to sort of make the most use of it while it's the most powerful, and in the early stages of the game, it is probably one of the most dominant ultimates in the game. But introducing the players and teams, it's going to be Puppey playing the Jakiro, Havost is playing the Phantom Lancer, Dendy is playing Magnus, KuroKy is playing the Rubik, and Funnick is going to be handling that Brewmaster. Me on the side of Rox.KIS, we're going to have BZZ playing the Chaos Knight, Dread is playing the Enigma. This is something he did quite often with DTS and M5, so it's a little bit nostalgic to see Dread playing the Enigma once again, as, ooh, there might be an early game engagement, just an Ice Path, as Puppey gonna grab that regen, completely mitigating the cost of his Ice Path, and meanwhile, yep, BZZ, not even forced to use a Tangle or anything like that. But anyway, Soul is going to be having the Gyrocopter, Vanscore is going to be playing the Nyx, and Yol is playing the Wisp, as, ooh, Rox.KIS is going to mix it up. They are going to put Dread in the offlane. They're going to do a safe tri-lane with the Wisp. And Navi actually going to do a tri-lane up top with Funnick. This is quite interesting. You almost never see Brewmaster in a tri-lane, but he's quite powerful. He has an immense AoE slow that does a lot of damage. And he's extremely difficult to bring down, as we're going to see the Ice Path as well as the Thunderclap, and Wisp forced to teleport in. And what I'm really wondering about in this Rox.KIS tri-lane is that, I mean, I think the rationale behind Rox.KIS's logic for putting this Wisp Chaos Knight top instead of mid is that, alright, we're going to lose bottom no matter what, because Phantom Lancer can't really be stopped, so we're going to pressure him with Dread. Okay, that's all well and good, but we were expecting a tri-lane bottom. We were not expecting an aggressive tri-lane. So we want Chaos Knight to have the most impact possible, and Chaos Knight does need some farm before he can start ganking relentlessly. So we're going to get that safely, and we want to have Gyrocopter get his farm as well. I don't know. Now that I think about it, I'm not really too sure how I'm liking this Rox.KIS decision. I mean, you can sort of understand the rationale behind it, because Chaos Knight will get more uninterrupted free farm, and Gyrocopter can harass Magnus at a bit of a safer range. And at least this way, you won't really need to sort of gank the Magnus, as Navi going to smoke up. But still, again, one of the main problems with this tri-lane is that Nyx and Wisp are very experienced dependent heroes. Maybe they felt like if they had Gyrocopter safe lane and Nyx doing the pulling, they wouldn't be able to shut down the Brewmaster in the offlane once they saw Funnick handling that. So if that's the case, then I think they're sort of sacrificing pretty much all over their lanes. Chaos Knight should be able to get a reasonable amount of free farms on the top lane, especially with the supports roaming in. But Magnus in the mid lane will be able to pick up his items, and this Rox.KIS lineup really can't apply too much pressure in the early stages of the game just because Wisp and Nyx will be so experienced and starved. So again, you can sort of understand where Rox.KIS is going to come from with the rationale behind this decision, but I don't know if it's going to work out in this game. And keep in mind, myself as a caster, I have complete vision of the whole field. Rox.KIS had no idea that now we were going to do an aggressive trial with the Brewmaster, and probably anticipate the Phantom Lancer solo him, but actually we're going to see a dual lane rotation. Puppey's going to support the Phantom Lancer, probably just to do some pulls as Havost is pushing out the creep wave, and one of the things you can do with Enigma, of course, is deny your own creeps, limit the Phantom Lancer's experience growth by quite a bit, as BZZ does pick up the first one, and as usual, I miss it, but replay timers for the win, everybody, as we're going to see the Reality Wisp tether stun. KROKI is going to get caught, Impale flies in, and KROKI is going to end up dying to the first blood. Chaos Knight does pick up the last hit, which is quite nice, so that is going to help fuel his gold intake by quite a bit, pick up his fast jumps. He's actually going to go for Bottle, and this is something you do with Wisp quite often, because Wisp doesn't tend to get too much farm, but Bottle and Wisp is so useful just because when you regen up while you're tethered, the person you're being tethered receives the full benefits of the regen. And sometimes that does mean that Wisp himself goes to the bottle and the carry will go for sort of his own items as a standard, but I guess in this game, Wisp is just not getting the farm going. Actually has 7 CS, so I think he might have been able to save up for bottle himself, but I guess he wants to build towards those boots, perhaps get an Urn of Shadows as well, because I think Rox.KIS recognized that they do have to win in the early stages of the game, before the game lasts too long, otherwise they will be overpowered by Magnus, as well as Phantom Lancer. So, BZZ gonna pick up the bottle, probably should send out to Wisp, so Wisp can give him that extra regen with the tether, because tether gives you extra regen as well as extra mana. Meanwhile, Soul seems to be handling himself quite well, but again, really can't kill the Magnus, can't really pressure him like a Chaos Knight Wisp lane could do in the mid lane. But Navi is forced to retreat from the top lane, Funnick is forced to play very, very defensively, and Rubik, again, is a hero that wants levels, especially KROKI's Rubik, who really relies on that Force Staff and Dagger to get in the most appropriate situations, because even though he can always steal a black hole if he's not caught in it, you can be rest assured that the Nyx will always be targeted because KROKI will probably be the squishiest target on the team. Wisp Chaos Knight will probably Reality Rift onto either KROKI or the Magnus if they can get their hands on him. So that is something that KROKI's got to be aware of. As you can see, the range of initiation on Reality is so long, Funnick only gets stunned for 1 second, the Impale just barely lifts. Very, very unfortunate turn of events for Rox.KIS. If that stun lasted 1 more second longer, Funnick would most certainly have ended his life right there up on the top lane. So a bit of bad luck for Rox.KIS. Maybe they should have waited for that stun to hit level 3, but even then, they still would have had the chance to get 1 second stun. Meanwhile, Solo is going to get lifted up in the air. Dendy's going to skewer him back. Solo is most certainly going to die. Only going to tank... No, he tanks 2 tower shots. And we're going to see the right clicks come in, bottling up furiously with Solo. But Dendy saved the mana, managed to get a couple shockwaves off in the midst of that, and managed to seal the deal on the gyrocopter in the mid lane. So, thus far, I think Navi's going to win the mid lane because they have dual roaming supports, and Nyx can't really effectively roam by himself because he is melee. He doesn't really have any setup by himself unless he manages to get a smoke or an invisibility rune. Top lane's being won by Rox.KIS, but Brewmaster has managed to cement himself level 4, and bottom lane's being won by Navi because, I mean, they have Phantom Lancer free farming, Enigma's actually forced back into the jungle, but he himself is gonna be quite high leveled, and Enigma in the jungle just farms so much faster than most other heroes when they are forced in the jungle. And this isn't all that bad for Rox.KIS, even though they're perhaps losing 2 lanes, because with the forced rotation of Enigma to the jungle, now I can start pushing in, and Eidolons, you can see he put 3 points into it to get that amplified damage on those conversions, and that means this tower could be very well forfeited very, very soon. And we're just going to check out the levels on the supports really quick. You can see both the supports on Navi are pretty low leveled, and that means they really can't stop this push once it does come in. As Jakiro does have a TP, might be forced to burn it right now. Just checking out Rubik, he has the TP as well. Level 2 Fade Bolt would be quite useful, limiting the creep damage as well as the hero damage, but again, no boots means that they are going to be in a risky situation when facing against a Chaos Knight and Wisp combination, just because their move speed is so immense and they can chase so effectively. But actually, it looks like Dread's Eidolons did time out, so they're going to chip away at this tower. We're going to actually see a rotation by Solo as the Eidolons are getting converted, and Navi's going to forfeit this completely. The reality of just barely goes Funnick, just getting away by the skin of his teeth, and a multiple instances. Very, very good positioning by Funnick, and also a little bit of bad luck by Rox.KIS in general, as that happens with Reality sometimes. And Rox.KIS looking to perhaps get 2 for this, and they are sacrificing a lot. They're using all 5 heroes, which means their experience growth is limited by quite a bit, and Phantom Lancer is free farming all the while. As Ice Path is going to fly in. Some other teams, when they see a push come in, like to get the teleport on the Phantom Lancer so it can potentially help out in the engagement, but the anti-push, can't speak, but the anti-push of Navi with the Ice Path as well as the Shockwave is sufficient enough that Havost isn't really needed, and Rox.KIS, once the Eidolons dive, really don't have the strongest pushing capabilities. So that is going to force Enigma back to the bottom lane. He does have a boost of speed. We'll see if he picks the mechanism or Wisp picks up the mechanism, as I imagine it will be the Enigma picking up the mech, just because Wisp, again, is not looking to get too many last hits. Meanwhile, Gyrocopter is being pressured back mid lane all the while. Dendy is outfiring him quite immensely. That first blood, or that second blood, definitely didn't help, and Gyrocopter, of course, did end up rotating to that top lane. As Ring of Aquila seems to be the item of choice. No, maybe just a casual Wraith Band. It's going to be a magic one, as Enigma going to be caught out in a terrible situation. Smoker Deceit, not even necessary, because Rox.KIS don't have any wards on that side of the map. But Navi looking to potentially pick up the Enigma. Unfortunately, Navi themselves don't have vision of the Enigma, and Enigma will be able to escape very, very safely. As, ooh, Navi's positioning just so strong, as Call Down is going to be used. Keep in mind the Wisp Orbs do give vision, and that means KuroKy will more certainly perish in this engagement. But a beautiful RP by Dendy, really set up nicely by the Ice Path, cutting off the reinforcements, allowed Dendy to get the perfect positioning for that RP and skewer combination, as BZZ just barely escapes with his life. And that is huge for Rox.KIS, because they are sacrificing their Gyrocopter, and the Wisp is going to be delayed on his level 6, and that means every moment that the Wisp can't gank, that means Savos is going to be a bit safer, and he's going to get more levels and more stats to boost his HP. And even though Phantom Lancer might die, the counter ganks, he should be able to survive long enough that enough teleports can come in from the side Navi, and perhaps pick up a couple of kills in exchange. But again, that assumes Wisp will hit level 6 relatively soon, which it does not seem like that will be the case. And Gyrocopter dying is going to be quite useful as well. And more importantly, it's going to fuel Dendy's Blink Dagger Rush by quite a bit. He should be able to pick up a really, really fast dagger at this rate, maybe 12 to 13 minutes. That would be very, very impressive. Already picked up 2 kills as well as 1 assist, and a lot has been made of Dendy's Magnus not being potentially that powerful, but Havos going to get initiated on. Here comes the Chaos Bolt. Panda Ultimate is going to be used, as Funnick looking to isolate a target. Most certainly will be Dread or the Wisp. Dread going to be stunned by the Boulder Toss. BZ actually going to rotate back in. Dread going to heal up as much as possible, as the Wisp is furiously bottling up, but Dread is going to be pummeled by the Brewmaster Spirits, and actually Yol going to take a lot of damage. The Thunderclap is going to fly in, and Yol will end up forfeiting his life. It's going to be a 2-for-1. They killed the Phantom Lancer, but they lost the Wisp as well as the Enigma, and Wisp's level 6 is being delayed even more heavily. I mean, they killed the Phantom Lancer and Chaos Knight got away, but ultimately, I'm not too sure if that was worth it. And again, Dendy actually will get a faster dagger than the 13-14 minute mark. He's going to get the skewer with the invisibility rune. BZZ going to be slowed by the skewer duration. 4-second stun on Dendy is going to help preserve his life, but the RP is going to be expended, and BZZ will end up perishing. Really, really good play by Navi thus far. Not going to lie, a little bit of luck too. Invisibility rune, we have it whipping a couple times, but a good team can always make, or always turn situations to their advantage to the fullest. And Navi's definitely making use of that thus far. And this is going to force Rox.KIS to play a bit defensively. Chaos Knight is dead. Wisp is still just managed to hit level 6, and Nyx is level 6 himself. So that might be the cue for Rox.KIS to perhaps go ganking. But now the Navi supports are getting a decent amount of levels. You can see Jakiro at 834 HP. Funnick is quite techy himself, has the Arcane Boots, and Dendy, with that kill, is going to have his dagger up. And that is going to be quite fearsome at this stage of the game. Always in danger of being blink skewered, and if RP is off of cooldown, blink RP is always a scary thought. You know, Dread just trying to do what he can. Enigma not really having the best of impact, and this is sort of the problem with Enigma these days. He was used to pick or he used to be picked for his huge AoE teamfight ability in the form of the Black Hole. But Enigma these days needs a lot of farm. He has very, very low HP, and his mana, or all his spells do cost quite a bit of mana, as for some reason I can't speak today. Yeah, it's very, very awkward. But all his spells do cost quite a bit of mana. He's very, very squishy, and Black Hole is a channeling ability, so it can be interrupted. And of course, Black Hole is the longest cooldown spell in the game by far. So Enigma has definitely fallen out of favor quite a bit. Meanwhile, Navi gonna push in on the middle tower. It seems like the Rox.KIS squad not gonna bother defending this middle tower. Instead, they're gonna go for a counter push or a trade on this bottom tier 1 tower. And overall, the middle tower a little bit more important in terms of positioning for Navi, because they get a bit easier time into the Roshan pit, but it might not be worth it if they lose this tier 2 on the top. I don't think that will happen. This tower is still at very high HP, and you can see the teleports are going to come in. Did Rox.KIS overstay their welcome? Dendi is going to venture forward, has the blink RP, gonna stun Yol. Here comes the Chaos Bolt once again, 4 second stun. Yol gonna relocate out. He is gonna forfeit his life. I think he might have been able to get away, but now he's most certainly going to end up perishing, as we're going to see teleported by Rox.KIS. They want to save this Wisp if at all possible. They're looking for another tether in, as they're going to teleport back with the Chaos Knight, but that is a perfect setup for the Brewmaster. Here comes a call down. Rox.KIS BZZ will end up dying. Does manage to pick up the Jakiro at the very least. Gyrocopter is going to rotate in, looking to focus down Kuroki. Kuroki trying to survive to the best of his ability, as he will end up dying. The hasted Gyrocopter doing so much. Unfortunately, the Impale does whiff. Dread gonna roam in, does get the Black Hole online, but where's the damage gonna come from? Funnig just so tanky, and Nyx Assassin by himself can't really do too much. Meanwhile, we're gonna see Havost roam in. Havost, does he have a magic wand or anything like that? No, is not gonna be able to catch up with the Enigma, but doesn't matter too much. Vanox is gonna survive, and Rox.KIS looking in a very, very dangerous state at this stage of the game. But perhaps Havost may have overstayed his welcome. He's continuing to farm on this top lane. Dust's appearance is going to be casted, and Havost going to be rally-lifted. Not too sure why Havost stayed for so long, but he is going to end up dying, looking to perhaps get a counter kill on Dread, but unfortunately Havost will end up paying for that insolence with his life, as he was dead anyway, so he was looking to pump out as much damage as possible. Not too sure why he stayed for so long, but he's gonna sacrifice his life. But it's all not that bad for Navi. Again, they've killed the Gyrocopter. Gyrocopter 2-3-1. They killed the Chaos Knight, who's 4-2-1. Havost 1-2-1, but is well on his way to the Defusal Blade. And Rox.KIS only have 1 tower advantage when they have the stronger early to mid game lineup. And really, they're not looking in too good a position. And when you have Enigma, you always think you have a teamfight advantage, but not against RP, not against Brewmaster Ultimate. And Enigma's farm has been shut down so heavily. He's just finished the mechanism, and he's going to need a BKB, but even then, Kuroki, if he steals a Black Hole, can just say lol to your BKB. Dendi RP says lol to your BKB as well. And Brewmaster Ultimate, until he gets that BKB, is going to be still as effective as Funnig. Gonna get picked off on the bottom lane. The Wisp relocate was in place. BZZ, will he end up dying? The Chaos Bolt, oh man, well-timed relocate, just on the nick of time. Will end up saving BZZ, but Vanscore will end up perishing as well. Next to Brewmaster, definitely a worthwhile trade, as again, you're going to mean that Brewmaster's levels will be limited by a bit, and Brewmaster is actually getting close to that level 11, and level 11 Brewmaster Ultimate not only does have a shorter cooldown, those Panda Spirits last longer, they do more damage, they're a bit tankier, and overall they're just an absolute menace. But still, Navi have to be feeling quite content. They're only a tower behind, but again, they're playing for the late game. As you can see, the Radiant do have a slight gold advantage, and again, that's a little bit odd considering that Rox.KIS do have a tower advantage. Experience advantage definitely spelling the story, as Navi has a significant experience advantage. Checking out the levels, you can see Dendi, the highest level in the game. All the top 3 heroes are on the side of Navi in terms of experience. And it might be time for Rox.KIS to lay off the gas pedal, because they are going to be facing very, very strong teamfight abilities in the mid game, especially that level 11 Brewmaster Ultimate, which Funnig has not been able to pick up just yet, but he's going to make his way towards the dagger. And it might be time for Rox.KIS to start saying, alright, we'll lay our foot off the gas pedal by just a bit, and we'll try to get Gyrocopter some farm, because when it comes down to the late game, all of Rox.KIS's hopes do rely on this flying old man in his helicopter. Meanwhile, Dread, only 70 CS. Enigma's usually managed to get a lot more farm, but Dread has been very active, has not been staying in his jungle, as instead trying to help out his team by quite a bit, by roaming, by looking for ganks. Unfortunately, has not been that influential, but at the very least he's only died once, and you can see Chaos Knight really just not a strong farmer, and this is the limitation of Chaos Knight, because he has no flash farming abilities, his attack speed is pretty slow, and he's just not a good farmer. When you have a single, or when you have no AoE for your hero, you're not going to be able to farm very fast. But Solo picks up a double danger and gonna go to work on this middle tower. It seems like he will pick it off, as the tower gonna get very close to deny range. Solo does pick up the last hit, very nice, as that double danger definitely helped him out by quite a bit, and that's gonna fuel Solo's gold intake by a nice amount. And I think in this game he will probably rush to the BKB, even though there's a mag and the potential for a stolen black hole by the Rubik. BKB is still the best option against this Brewmaster, against this mana burn by the Phantom Lancer, against the Ice Path, which will be so annoying for the Gyrocopter. And I don't think Rox.KIS are looking to split push that often, so Shadowblade might not be in the cards, but then again, I'm not too sure. He is saving up a lot of gold, and usually you do want to get that Overclub first and put that on the hero for the extra boost of HP it does give you. Meanwhile, BZZ farming up, trying to pick up the armlet, and then probably going to do a BKB himself, as Rox.KIS really forced in a terrible situation for their mid-game lineup. They're forced to play defensively, which is not the best, and Funnick going to get very close to his dagger. Checking out the net worth really fast, you can see Magnus, the highest net worth in the game. Dendy's been playing very well. 404 saying, my Magnus is actually god tier. Those other times where I whiffed RPs, those are just merely blips on the radar. This is what you can expect from Magnus. And Rox.KIS just trying to get map control back on their side. Again, the most important thing with Wisp is to always have map control. And even though you can't always gank with Wisp, if the other team is clumped up, you are at least limiting the experience growth of the enemy team, because they are forced to clump up, and you're protecting your carry at the same time, which is all well and good. So Wisp is not totally useless when the other team sort of groups up as 5, but his effectiveness is very limited. Yol just managed to finish his Urn of Shadows, and Armlet should be on the way very shortly for the Chaos Knight. Actually, it will be quite a bit, as he still needs to farm up the gloves as well as the blades, so about 550 more gold. Meanwhile, Gyrocopter still saving up a bit more gold, not too sure what he's saving for. Enigma, we'll see what he saves for as well. Could pick up, I guess, a dagger. Maybe he thinks that against Magnus as well as the Rubik, he needs that dagger to make sure he can catch both of those heroes. But there's just so many forms of counter initiation by Navi that, I don't know, Enigma really feels like not the strongest option for Rox.KIS. But keep in mind, Enigma was picked up before the Brewmaster, so Rox.KIS may have been forced into this position, and Navi, with the clever drafting, picked up a lot of anti-Enigma counters on their side of the map. Keep in mind, Jakiro, his Ice Path is very strong against Enigma as well, especially if Dread does go for the fast dagger. He is going to pick up the dagger. This isn't really for black hole positioning. I think this is just to help out the ganks a bit more, but Rox.KIS not really able to get those ganks going. And this dagger, again, there's so many ways to interrupt it. Everybody on the side of Navi, except for Vost, does have a way to cancel that dagger until Enigma does get a BKB. Armlet finished on BZZ, checking out Nyx's farm really quickly. Arcane Boots, not too much for Vanscore, as he's unable to make too many openings. Navi is just playing as he should against a Nyx and a Wisp combination. They're just sticking together, saying we're BFFs, and Navos is just going to farm his jungle, where he can increase his experience even if he's not making the most efficient method of gold. But Avost finished the Diffusal Blade, going to be well on his way towards a Manta if he does decide to go for the Yasha. And we all, Rox.KIS, never really been able to get on the Navi's side of the map, so they can't even relocate to try to gank Havost, because they don't even know where Havost is. as Host actually revealing himself on the middle lane, and Impale just going to be used to stun out the illusions. But you can see Rox.KIS very tentative. They are going to see the Navi supports Roman, and this is just... I mean, it's weird seeing Navi play so passively, but this is how you should play this lineup. You should play it defensively. You have so many forms of counter initiation. You have good initiation as well, but you have a Phantom Lancer. So why not play for the late game? Even if they do pick up a Rapier on Gyrocopter to mount through those Phantom Lancer illusions, hey, you still have RP. But it seems like Navi looking to get a bit more map control on their side, trying to make the best usage of the Panda ultimate, which again does reduce in terms of effectiveness as the game goes on. Looking to perhaps take down this top tier 1 tower. You can see Empower doing a lot of damage. Here comes a relocate in. I think Rox.KIS are looking for the courier. You can see the orbs trying to spy it out. So relocate will be on cooldown. And now Rox.KIS just going to defend the push, but keep in mind the top or the tier 1 towers do not get backdoor protection. Meanwhile, Solo was able to kill off the tier 2 bottom, so Rox.KIS making the most of a bad situation. Gonna get a tier 2 for a tier 1, and this is gonna mean that Navi pretty much has no Roshan control. The closest way they can perhaps get to Roshan is teleporting into this tower and then smoking up. So Rox.KIS might be aiming to do that, but you can see Navi has wards everywhere. They're blocking off the Ancients, so Gyrocopter can't stack it. They're keeping wards up on all areas of the map. So Navi really playing this game very, very smartly. And again, it's not like Rox.KIS are playing bad. They just did not have the best early game, and with the mid-game lineup, if you don't have a strong early game, you might not have the strongest mid-game either. But they are doing the right call, in my opinion, at this stage in the game. They're farming at the Gyrocopter. He's finished his BKB, and this might allow Rox.KIS to force an engagement, but still, against a Dagger Remaster as well as a Dagger Magnus and a Dagger Rubik, KuroKy saying, who needs more than 750 HP? I'm just going to pick up a raw Dagger. So now I see no way Enigma can ever channel his ultimate until he gets that BKB, and even then, it's not looking good. Dread just not gonna have a good game this game when it comes down to the mid to late stages. And it looks like that might be the case, as this game has taken a little bit of a slow turn. There's a couple things Rox.KIS could do. Again, they have Gyrocopter, they have Nyx, they have a lot of ways to gank the enemy team. They have pretty strong split pushing with this just because you can always get to a lane and really just keep back the Phantom Lancers. So if they can sort of force a couple teleports and then relocate when the Navi heroes are retreating, that's a way to open up the game. Again, Rox.KIS should theoretically always have Roshan control because they have a lot of map control on their side. As Wisp already uses Tether, he will end up dying, and Chaos Knight just looking to get the heck out of there, but Dendi gonna be looking, gets the Blink RP, as the Tether gonna be there for an additional amount of stun. Chaos Knight so very tanky, but the Ice Path is gonna use to lock K's BZZ in place. Brewmaster Thunderclap gonna be used to help seal the deal, as Dendi unstoppable with this Magnus. Dendi has a BKB. And yeah, you know how I was talking about Rox.KIS can make a comeback? Well, it's not gonna happen for the next 2 minutes at the very least, because Rox.KIS are dead. Well, I guess it could happen, but they still have to be contending against a Brewmaster ultimate, as well as KuroKy's Rubik Dagger, who can steal the Black Hole at any given point. I'm not sure how Rox.KIS can really call themselves back. Again, they still have Roshan control, just because they have Wisp, and they managed to pick off all the important towers in terms of limiting Navi's Roshan control. But still, Navi looking in just such a solid shape that they might not even mind sacking the Aegis. Checking out the golden experience graph, Navi has been able to take a slight lead. I think this advantage created by Rox.KIS was on the back of Navi grouping up and Rox.KIS being able to take down some towers. You can see Rox.KIS do still have a 1 tower advantage. The experience graph, however, has not been able to take that much of a dip, as Navi looking for another engagement, gonna skewer BZZ, Tether stun gonna fly in, crisscrossing Tethers, gonna create a T as BZZ does not the Phantasm to get himself out of trouble, but the damage by Navi is simply not sufficient without Avos. Here comes split by Funnick as Solo looking to do a lot of DPS. Wisp gonna fly in, they do manage to pick off Jakiro, but Magnus does kill off Wisp, and that is gonna limit this chasing power of Rox.KIS quite severely. BZZ is gonna get lifted, back up into the air by Kuroki, and Rox.KIS being driven back. Midnight Pulse is going to be cast by Enigma as Dendy's taking a lot of edge, but still the tether usage by Kuroki is so remarkable, healing up Dendy all the while. Dendy will end up dying, so it's going to be a 2-for-2 engagement, and Dendy gave up a huge streak to the gyrocopter. But, and here's the but, Navi probably not too sad, because Havos is free farming. And he's going for the straight Reaver Heart. He picked up the Yasha for a bit more attack speed, a bit more move speed. How about his farm? And now he's going to probably go right back into the Heart to give himself a ridiculous amount of HP. And Gyrocopter, even with the BKB, he can pick up a Demon Edge, try to go for that MKV. But even then, with so many ultimates to lock down the Gyrocopter, I don't think Rapier will be an option until Gyrocopter gets that Aegis and has a full inventory set with the Satanic, an MKB, a crit, and then a Rapier as his 6th slot. Meanwhile, Navi, perhaps anticipating the Rox.KIS is going to look to take a Roshan engagement. Here comes the relocate in. They're going to spot out Puppey, but Puppey places a really strong ice path. Here on Wisp does indicate where you're teleporting into, and Rox.KIS being chain stunned into oblivion. Here comes the black hole being used just for Havost, and this is probably the only black hole that Nim can use, but the relocate happens at the wrong time. A little bit of misplayed tether as Denny gonna get a 2-man skewer back into the ice path. Dread will end up dying. Solo doing a lot of DPS as he does pick up double kill, but that's only 2 supports. Chaos Knight gonna get back into the action as Wisp is there. They kill off Funnick as the main DPS heroes Havost as well as Denny gonna get that guy out of there, and suddenly Rox.KIS getting a bit more momentum back. Just want to see if they used any buybacks. No, they didn't use any buybacks. All they lost to was Nyx. And Dread got a 1-man black hole, and that was probably the best black hole he could have hoped for, because really nothing Navi could do to stop it, as Kuroki was not able to get the blink and steal it. So, really good fight for Rox.KIS, but still, the experience advantage will take a hit. But Gyrocopter, getting a lot of gold, picks up the Demon Edge. Will he go for a straight Rapier, saying that, okay, Havost doesn't have the heart just yet. It might be time to consider getting that, but still, he is quite far away, still about 1400 gold. And by the time he farms 1400 gold, that will be another 2 minutes off his Aegis timer. So, I don't think Rapier is just yet in the cards, but if Navi lose these engagements, it very well may be a possibility. The unfortunate thing for Rox.KIS, even though Chaos Knight did not die, is that Chaos Knight is only level 13 and has, again, just not been farming because Chaos Knight is not a good farmer and is still very far away from his own BKB. But you can see, definitely the effect of Brewmaster Ultimate starting to wear off. Was not able to do that much damage or teamfight control. Actually, it wasn't even used, so scratch that. It's just back up. Or, yeah, it was used on this top lane and Brewmaster Ultimate was not even there. But still, Rox.KIS 3-for-1 engagement, definitely very, very nice. But now they have to deal with the split push by Phantom Lancer, as now he has all the items in place to just send illusions out, kill towers very easily. I mean, it's a bit easier to defend the split push against PL when you have a Wisp on your side who can constantly teleport you out of there, but still, it's going to be quite difficult when you don't really have the best flash farmers other than the Gyrocopter. But you saw the strength of Gyrocopter in that engage. He was able to do so much DPS, and without an RP, there's really nothing that Navi could do to touch him. It's going to be up to Kuroki to steal that black hole, but Dread going to be aware of that fact, picks up a BKB, so at least the Brewmaster effects will be mitigated, as we're going to see relocate in. Sentry Ward will be used, BZZ gonna be skewered in place, Denny gets a 2-man RP, Vascor will end up perishing, VZZ gonna die as well, but he does manage to take Jakiro with them. Relocate gonna go in. Wisp does manage to escape to safety as Navi once again take a successful team fight, and they are gonna look for another tower. Chaos Knight does have buyback. He's gonna have to use it right now if they hope to defend the siege. Well, it seems like Rox.KIS think they can defend it without using the buyback. They recognize the importance of BKB for Chaos Knight, as Navi not going to push their luck too much. They got a tower. They got 2 kills. They only lost to Jakiro. They got to be feeling pretty good. Solo does pick up the MKB, recognizing that there is still too many ultimates stock in place. And BKB is the name of the game for Rox.KIS. They need it, even though there's an RP and KuroKy with the threat of stealing Black Hole. So it might just be up to Dread to just never cast Black Hole, or if he does get a Black Hole, make sure he always catches KuroKy in it. Or wait for the RP to be used, then focus KuroKy with the Black Hole. And if that's the case, Rox.KIS do have some openings, because then their BKB heroes can roam freely. Castanet can make his way towards the BKB, and keep in mind Castanet crits, Gyrocopter AoE damage will do a lot, and the flat cannon, melting down spirits, will be quite useful as Solo gonna look to push in. Rox.KIS pushing in, they know the Brewmaster ultimate's down, they know RP is down, but RP is going down very rapidly. Rox.KIS take an uncontested tier 2 mid, and they're gonna just get the heck out of there. But all the while, Aegis is timing out relatively soon in about 3 minutes. Solo gonna take a lot of Phantom Lights illusion damage, because again, the Phantom Lights split push at this stage in the game is so annoying. The heart makes the illusions ridiculously tanky. I don't think Chaos Knight could take down 4 illusions. Only Gyrocopter can take down these illusions, and 1 Gyrocopter might not be enough with these items. So we'll have to see what Solo decides to get. Will he go for Butterfly into Satanic and then go for the Rapier? Well, just think about it. Well, Travels, BKB, MKB, Rapier, Satanic. Yeah, I guess they can pick up a Butterfly. That'll help out the evasion by quite a bit. And physical evasion will be quite important, so I think Solo will look to get the Butterfly up and then start considering more drastic measures. He's going to pick up the Helm Dominator to make his way towards Satanic, give himself a little bit more lifesteal, a bit more survivability in these team fights. Meanwhile, the gold graph constantly spiking all over the place. Rox.KIS still do have a tower advantage, but the gold graph very slightly in Navi's favor. The experience graph has not ticked that much higher in Navi's favor, so actually this game is looking relatively even, but again, Dendi, he had that BKB, he's working on the refresher, and I think once Dendi gets the BKB refresher, either you focus him or you're going to get owned. This is just not a good situation for Rox.KIS to be in, and that Chaos Knight is just, I feel like he's very underleveled. You can see last time I checked him, he was level 13. Now he's not even level 14. Still about 450 gold away from finishing that BKB. Rubik's picked up a Ghost Scepter to mitigate that Gyrocopter as well as the Phantasm damage by the Chaos Knight. Puppey with the Mechanism of Host. Diffusal Blade level 2 to increase his mana burn damage. Rox.KIS Dread has his own BKB like I mentioned previously. Nyx has been able to make no item progression whatsoever. Yol picks up a Ghost Scepter himself, which will be very useful against the Phantom Lights as well as the Spirits. But they really need the CK to pick up the BKB. He will have it after the next creep, but Navi just camping this bottom lane. Just saying, alright, we're not going to let you take the initiation for the team fight while you still have the Aegis. We're going to make you use the Aegis in a very defensive position. And actually, Navi, I think they timed the Aegis perfectly, because this push will come in just as Gyrocopter's Aegis will time out, and if that happens, that'll make Rox.KIS very, very sad indeed. And you can see Rox.KIS looking for an engagement. They want to make the most of this Aegis, but Navi's positioning means that they really can't take this engagement without being threatened by an RP. And this Aegis has timed out, and suddenly Rox.KIS looking very, very mortal. But Havosis is just going to teleport back, just going to continue the farm game. They have another 4 minutes before the next Roshan. Even if Havosis can't teleport into the fight because there's no towers to teleport and his TP is on cooldown, he's just going to farm up and say, Rox.KIS, what are you going to do about this? Are you going to gank me with the Wiz Tether? I have a freaking heart and a Mantis style at this point. Meanwhile, a kill was taken, as I'm just going to rewind that. Ooh, RP by Dendi with the BKB activated, as here comes Skewer back with the Ice Path. A little bit mistimed, but Brewmaster does pick off the Wisp. Meanwhile, BCC taking a lot of edge. Here comes Dread, looking for the engagement. You can see KuroKy immediately turning around, stealing the Black Hole. They need to focus on KuroKy. Right now, KuroKy might very well perish, but you can see the Ghost Scepter doing so much work. KuroKy gets his Black Hole immediately canceled, but Vost has finally joined the party, saying, did you guys miss me? Rox.KIS just like, no, please go away. PRD is in Havo's favor. Can he get the illusion stacks? Rox.KIS Dread gonna get lifted up in the air, and you can see Gyrocopter just scurrying on out of there. Havos is gonna keep up the pursuit. BKB's down. The Purge Blade is in full effect. Solo is gonna end up dying. Picks up an ultra kill, and Navi gonna look for Rex after that huge, momentous engagement. Not too sure why Rox.KIS were looking for the engagement when their Aegis timed out. Maybe they saw Phantom Winter, they said, okay, Phantom Winter's TP is on cooldown, let's go for the fight. They don't have the Phantom Winter in there. And Phantom Winter did arrive very late to the party, but just the lockdown of the Brewmasters was a Magnus, and Dendi now has a fresh orb, so he can get the double RP going. This is just looking very, very grim for Rox.KIS. And I don't think Rox.KIS even played bad. I think they just had a bad early game. And that's not going to work against a Phantom Winter with a Magnus support. If it was a Phantom Winter by himself, even with a Brewmaster backup, you do still have a shot with the Gyrocopter Rapier. But with a Magnus backup, I don't know. It's going to take a miracle. At the very least, Navi did not go for the Rex. They recognized everybody was responding. I think they could have gone for the Rex, but they decided, why risk it? Play defensively, play safely. Maybe wait for Denny to get buyback, as he did not have it online. Picks a Smoke Deceit, so they might be going for the next Aegis. As Phoenix ultimate will cool down very soon, picked up a Vlad's, and his ultimate is now at level 16, so his illusions or his spirits are even tankier, they last even longer. They will die to the Flatcan Barrage, but still Gyrocopter with only one major DPS item, the spirits will still last a reasonable amount of time. And again, the Rox.KIS item advantage, item progression has just been halted to an absolute crawl. Experience advantage, 15k advantage for Navi, gold advantage starting to creep towards the 7.5k mark. And Rox.KIS, their heroes are becoming less and less effective as this game goes on. And without something major like a Butterfly or a Rapier, how can they kill a Ghost? I don't see how it's possible. They needed super mega crits from the Chaos Knight, and then they have a shot. As Savos just going to easily clean up that tier 2 mid. You can see Rox.KIS tried to get the tier 2 top. They had the Wisp to relocate on out of there. Wisp doesn't have a TP, so even if they relocate back to the base, that won't be the best idea as Gyrocopter dies. How did that happen? Solo gonna get lanced, telekinesed, no chance to pop the BKB. Gonna get complete decimated. KuroKy once again in the right place at the right time. And without the Gyrocopter, with no buyback, this is gonna mean 2 sets of racks, perhaps even the game. But now we doesn't know that Gyrocopter doesn't have buyback, as here comes the Brewmaster, doing a lot of damage. Wiscassin looking for a Rax trade, as Savos does not manage to teleport back on out of there. But he's gonna get Arcane Boots up, so now he can teleport back out of there, as Navi just saying, alright, you can probably take down their tier 3, we have the Glyph, we can take 2 Racks, and then still probably defend our base. And you can see, here comes Spirits being summoned by Phonic, gonna send the Chaos Knight dancing up into the air. Wisp teleport, or Wisp tether, gonna delay the assault by a little bit. KuroKy does get stunned by the tether, as BZ actually gonna go back in, but the black hole by KuroKy was still in place. KuroKy gets the black hole. Phantom Winter killing off NA in the base, and GG well played is called by Rox.KIS, as Rox.KIS gonna get taken to a game 3. Navi climbing back in decisive fashion, and again, this shows you the importance of drafts as well as the early stages of the game. As I don't think Rox.KIS played that bad in mid-game. They had to do what they had to do, but their lanes just did not work out, and I think they were eventually outdrafted. But Navi going to be quite content, and now it's coming down to a best of 1. Winner takes home 12k, loser takes home 7k. Still a nice sum either way, especially for the Russian teams which don't have the highest GDP, but the prestige and the momentum gonna be very, very crucial as well. So as the throne does end up dying, as Puppy feeds to some creeps, we're just gonna wait till this game ends, which it should do very, very soon. 2 lanes of racks means that the creeps will end up killing the throne. So I will be back bringing you game 3, the last match of the series. Hopefully it will be a good time, as this game had some slow paces, but overall pretty well played by both sides. But Navi showing why they are so hard to bring down for any Western team, and for a lot of Eastern teams as well, coming back and taking the game So we'll be going to game 3. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time. Peace.